Hi, you guys. Welcome to week 2 of the breakdown of nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Let's do a little bit of a recap. From last week, we talked about the 4 components of nonviolent communication. So let's just go ahead and break those down again.
So the first one is our observations. This is observing without judgment. The second one is our feelings. Notice your feelings without making it about the other person.
Without making it about the other person.
Is that what I said?
Yep.
Okay.
No.
Number 3 is what unmet needs are present. What are your needs? Mm-hmm. Number 3 is your requests. What will your request be?
Okay, so obviously that's a very broken down or quick recap. So if you're not sure what we're talking about, go back and watch the last video from last week. But this week, what we want to talk about is what ends up getting in the way of us being able to integrate those 4 components of that of this breakdown.
Yeah, and Marshall believed that life alienating communication is what gets in our way. Okay.
So what is life alienating communication?
The first one being moral judgments and criticism.
Right. So this kind of exists within its name, right? We can know what a criticism is before we even say it. Oftentimes we do, but when we're in these triggered states, sometimes it just flies out of us faster than we can stop it. So these look like things like he's a bad person or they're doing it wrong. These are kind of like insults or accusations that are sort of focused on what's wrong with someone or what's bad about them. What ends up happening is we're creating a deeper rift between ourselves and the person, and oftentimes what we think is wrong is actually just out of harmony with what it is we value. Mm-hmm. Right? So just starting to notice, like, just because I value it doesn't necessarily mean that they value it, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong for not valuing it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And then the next one is making demands and or coercion.
Nailed it. So this one, really, the way that I think about it is like manipulation. This is not an obvious one. Oftentimes we do this in really underhanded ways, but these are types of things that we do that are motivated in a way that can cause resentment or disconnection or conflict between us and the person that we're placing these coercive languages onto, or requests or demands.
Yeah, and honestly, the when I realized like manipulation, like all of us do this quite a bit, and it can be little things that you didn't even notice that you do, and so it goes more into that, I want you to do this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So things like you have to do something, guilting or shaming somebody. Anytime you guilt or shame somebody, you're moving into that coercion realm.
Yeah, these can also look like if you do this sort of thing, reward and punishment, or you must do this out of some sort of duty or obligation to me, to our relationship, to the family. And yeah, we don't want to place guilt or shame or fear on a person for not showing up for us in the way that we may need to. This is where we go straight back into realizing that oftentimes what exists inside of demands are actually requests that have turned violent. Mm-hmm. Right?
So the examples that we have that are energies that are high cost to the relationship are things like fear, guilt, shame, a duty or an obligation to a person, right? We feel this maybe sometimes with our family. We have an obligation to our family. Mm-hmm.
Or our work.
Our work, yeah. Rewards. Little kids, right? You can have that cookie if you blah, 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 do your homework. Punishment, your shoulds. Okay, so now anytime that you are saying these words, should, have to, you ought to, you are moving into violent communication territory. And we do this a lot. I stop myself so many times a day being like, well, you should do this. Well, why don't you do this? You should oil yourself. I say that a lot. And that you should, but whatever.
That also goes into the fourth one that we're going to talk about after this third one. So the number 3 category is not taking responsibility. This kind of gets into the category of remembering that there's a difference between what stimulates us and what causes our reaction or response to something.
Yeah.
Do you want to take over that one?
Sure, yeah. So just being really mindful that, gosh, how many times have I done this myself? Been like, well, you said this to me and that made me feel this way. That's not fair.
It's essentially saying that our response was because of something that somebody else did. So allowing ourselves to take responsibility for our own interaction with a stimulus is extremely important and really can allow more connection rather than separation.
So a better way to say it would be like, when you said this brought up the feeling that I wasn't valued. That's how you would reword something like that.
Yeah,
So
this
be
is
mindful.
where the difference between you language and I language is really, really important. This is something that I know I talk about a lot in class. I know that it's something that you value as well, that we have to be super mindful of when we are wanting to start a sentence with the word you. You did this. You made me this. You did that. Versus I feel, I need, I did, and owning our part in this interaction.
Beautiful. And the last
So-
one is fix it language.
Fix it language. This is a really hard one because we really want to help people through their issues, right? And when we do this, what fix it language can look like is advice or help oriented ideas around what's good for someone, what they should do, rather than tuning into what the listener or what the person we're trying to give advice to wants or needs. So there's 2 things that kind of live inside of this realm that may be unconscious. The first thing is more of an implication. When we input ourselves into an idea of what somebody should do or how somebody should live their life, what we're essentially telling them unconsciously is that we don't trust them to be able to figure that out for themselves. And realizing that if we allow ourselves or allow somebody to express themselves within a safe container of empathy, we're actually allowing them to build their own solutions to the issues that may be arising for them. The second thing that is kind of like an undercurrent within this fix-it world is that we're oftentimes, as a society, not very comfortable with our own hard emotions, let alone someone else's. So when we try to fix something for someone, what that's really an indication of is that how they feel is making us uncomfortable because we don't want them to be sad and it's making us feel sad and we want to get them out of it as soon as possible because we want to get out of it as soon as possible. So just keep that type of thing in mind.
Let's do a second review.
Okay.
So that is a breakdown of some of the life alienating communications that will keep us from connecting with people and from being able to express our nonviolent communication. All right, my friends, have a beautiful day. Love you all.
Oh, and if you have any questions, anything else that you feel like you want to break down more or want to have, are curious about this a little bit more, let's talk about it. Open up dialogue in the comments below.
Thanks, guys. Bye.